You're listening to Systemic Era Podcast. The failure was designed.
GOP senator throws Trump's own words back in his face based on an article by Sarah K. Orris. Trump wants the state to pay his loyalists for accountability, a grievance machine in government clothing. The immediate story is simple enough. The Justice Department announced a nearly $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. Trump said it should compensate his supporters and January 6 attackers, and Sen. Thom Tillis publicly pushed back while still entertaining the premise that Biden-era prosecutions were vindictive. That is the surface. The real story is what this fund is for politically, turning accountability into a cash-out for the president's faction. The decision-maker is obvious. Trump is not a commentator here. He is the organizer of the message, the beneficiary of the narrative, and the person using his endorsement power to shape the Republican Senate primary in Texas. The timeline in the source matters. DOJ announced the fund on May 18. Trump endorsed John Cornyn's opponent on May 19, and Cornyn lost 5 days later. That is not a random overlap. It is power applied through timing, intimidation, and the threat of disloyalty. Weaponization as laundering. The language itself is the trick. Anti-weaponization sounds administrative and procedural, but the purpose Trump assigns it is openly political, rewarding people who were hunted down like dogs in his telling and retroactively recasting criminal defendants as state victims. That is not a misunderstanding. It is a deliberate inversion of responsibility. The source makes the contradiction plain. Trump's allies claim abuse, but the article notes that people who had government documents were expected to return them, and Trump refused even after the National Archives warned the FBI would have to get involved. The grievance is not a neutral injury. It is the shield for conduct that triggered lawful enforcement. Tillis is quarreling over the wrong part. Tillis tries to sound principled by saying people who attacked police should not get taxpayer checks. Fine, that is the bare minimum. But he also repeats the lie that Biden pursued vindictive prosecutions against January 6 defendants, which means he is still accepting the central authoritarian premise that violent attacks on the Capitol were really government persecution with a few rough edges. That is how Republican resistance to Trump often works now. It is not refusal, it is management. Senators object when the corruption becomes too explicit, too expensive, or too embarrassing, while leaving the underlying lie intact. The public already saw through it. The source cites polling showing Americans overwhelmingly opposed pardons for violent January 6 attackers. That matters because it exposes the gap between public judgment and elite accommodation. Voters can still tell the difference between law enforcement and insurrectionists. Republican leadership, meanwhile, keeps trying to blur that distinction long enough to protect Trump's coalition from consequence. The larger pattern. This is what authoritarian politics looks like in its polished American form, not a coup in uniform, but a patronage system built around grievance, pardon, reimbursement, and denial. The state punishes wrongdoing, and Trump's machine demands the state compensate the punished. That is not reform, it is inversion. The purpose is to teach loyalists that violence, fraud, and defiance will be recoded as martyrdom if the right man is in charge. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AlterNet for today's article. With the automated voice of LJ, thanks for listening.